All right, amazing protests going on tonight, and some are getting scary, no question about it. So it's happening in cities across the country. It's obviously in relationship to the killing of George Floyd, and it's not just in Minneapolis anymore that the protests are raging. They're also happening in not just cities across the country, not just in Washington, but in front of the White House. And Secret Services, I think, taken at least one person in already from the reports that are happening right now as we speak. And then interesting development in Atlanta where the protesters went to the CNN building. And then vandalism broke out. There was graffiti on the side, on the walls of CNN and the glass doors, and then more violence happened. And then the police cars seem to be attacked. It's happening right now, guys. So I'm reporting it as I see it. There's a little bit of fog of war here. I'm sure that we'll have better information soon, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we can. But the reason I want to do this video, other than letting you know, is because it's amazing and it might be happening in your city right now. But also because people that are in the media will be surprised and they'll say, "Well, I don't get it." And I guarantee you they use words like random and senseless because they'll think, "Why are they attacking CNN? CNN is only reporting on what's going on." No. Look, there's a couple of obvious reasons for this, and then one really important one that I think is the most important. So, first of all, CNN is a giant institution in Atlanta, but that relates to the third point as well. So, if you're going to go protest somewhere, that is, in some ways, a logical place to protest. Another reason why it's logical is because that's where the media is. So, if you're going to do a protest, it makes sense to do it where the media can see you. But let me, and really, really importantly, it's, as I watch it and I see it, it's definitely a little scary. No question about that. And if you were inside that building, my guess is you would be scared. And my number one hope is that everyone is all right. The folks inside the building, the protesters, I hope we can make it out of all this with no one getting harmed. Now, and CNN, to the first point, is in an area of Atlanta where it is also normal to congregate. So you have this big, powerful institution that does news near a place where people congregate in Atlanta. That is definitely part of the reason. But the other reason, the third reason that people are not going to talk about is CNN is the powerful. They are viewed by a lot of people as the establishment. I'm not even talking in political terms here. Yes, we talk about that in regards to we're progressives and we think that the mainstream media is part of the establishment, but that's not what I'm referring to here, because the folks that are protesting there, God knows what their politics are or if they even have any politics. They are rightfully livid over the situation and they cannot take it anymore. And when they look at the power institutions, especially in Atlanta and especially in the country, they view CNN as part of the power structure. And they're right. And so don't call it random. It isn't random. If you think that CNN is not part of the establishment or not part of the power structure, then you obviously don't have any sense of what's going on in the country. Does anyone in the media really think that when people think power to the people, they think CNN? If you think that, you're totally deluding yourself. That is not what's happening at all. Again, in non-political terms, they're not worried about the different breakdowns within the Democratic or Republican Party. They view a system that has oppressed African Americans in this country for centuries, and for decades they have said, "My God, will anybody fix it?" And the answer has been a resounding no. But yesterday I talked about how the government has never tried to fix it, so they shouldn't be surprised. and I know this is, when Malcolm X said it, it was considered deeply controversial, but it's in this case logical and obvious. When the chickens come home to roost for the government, they shouldn't be surprised. Of course, you've given them no other outlet. Violence is politics of last resort. So no one helped them. The Republicans certainly didn't help them, but the Democrats didn't help them. So they sense that, well, and you wonder why there's low voter turnout, because they're like, what does the government ever do for us? What do politicians ever do for us? Why do you think Congress polls at anywhere from 17% down to 7%? Because people don't feel represented. Why? You're getting killed out there every single day, and nobody ever fixes this thing. Nobody ever says, hey, you know what? Police are part of the problem. That there's something wrong with the culture of policing. Why don't they say that if they're part of the government? Because, oh my God, the police are powerful within politics. I don't want to piss off the police. Oh, I'll be seen as illegitimate if I heavily criticize the police and the culture and the police training, etc. But wait a minute. Why would you be considered illegitimate? Because that's what the press would say. Because the press would then call you a radical. And the press would then say, oh, no, you can't get elected to office. You can't be in a position of power. We shouldn't listen to your point of view. You're outsiders. You're illegitimate. The press does that. So you should not be surprised when people are angry. They view the press as part of the powerful and not part of the people. So look, there is some degree of bias here. Obviously, we're independent media at the Young Turks, and we're all about the people, and that's what we believe. But I'm sure many, many people disagree. And to be fair to the CNNs of the world, if we were as large as CNN and there was a giant TYT building in the middle of Atlanta or any other city, it might be happening to us. But can CNN really look at itself in the face and say, or look at itself in the mirror and say, yeah, I mean, we really stuck up for the little guy. And when a government official said something, we always challenge them. No, they challenge Trump, okay? I'm not blind, but do they really challenge the power structure in this country, or do they accept it? Do they say, hey, a statement from a government official is legitimate and I will present it fairly unchallenged? Especially pre-Trump era, when the police say something, do they just put it on air? Yes, you know that. But if someone who is not powerful says something, do they immediately put it on air? No. Then they worry about credibility and legitimacy. Well, that is exactly how power maintains itself. And that is exactly how you ostracize outsiders and the actual people, and you elevate the already powerful. Look, the press in this country have forgotten what they were supposed to do. And I'm going to paraphrase this great quote, old quote, that they were supposed to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. But have they really done that in these last several decades? If you're being honest and you're part of the mainstream media, you have not done that. Have you really afflicted the comfortable? No way. And to the best of our abilities, when we do that, and other outlets do that, The Intercept, Democracy Now!, you name it, when they do it, you go, oh, radicals. Why are we radical? Because we try to represent the people, the powerless, the outsiders. So when you represent the insiders, and look at your sets, wall-to-wall insiders. And look, I'm not trying to pick on CNN. It's just that the CNN building is being attacked, and I don't want people to call it random, because it isn't random. And I ask at the same time, anything where you cross the line of physicality and go from freedom of speech and freedom of assembly to doing not just damage, but what I'm really worried about is if people's lives are endangered. That is not right. You should not do that. Okay. I'm not trying to justify that. I'm not trying to excuse that. What I'm trying to do is explain it, because that is part of my job, is to do analysis of the news. And when you look to explain it, I don't want people dismissing it as like, oh, the protesters are crazy. Why would they ever do that to CNN? No, it's because when they look on the set of anyone, so to the point I was making, whether it's MSNBC, Fox News, CBS, ABC, NBC, what do you see? You see pundits who are in government, politicians, Republicans, Democrats. Do Do you see anyone who's more of an outsider? No. Do you see anyone who's poor? Of course not. Do you see anyone who's middle class? Not really. Almost everybody on air these days, especially the anchors, are millionaires, multimillionaires. So when you're in your castle, I mean, it literally looks like a giant castle filled with millionaires, and all you have on air is one government official after another, and you don't represent the people, you should not be surprised when the people rise up, and one of the things that they are frustrated at is you. So we have been warning, and I don't mean just young Turks, I mean progressives and thoughtful people. Look, Nick Hanauer is a venture capitalist. He did a show on our network called Pitchfork Economics, and he often talks about pitchforks. And he has said 1,000 times, now he's very wealthy, but he has said 1,000 times, guys, we cannot build castles high enough. We cannot build moats deep enough. No, if you have income inequality and power inequality to this degree, the pitchforks will come. It is inevitable. And now they are here. This is what pitchforks look like. And one more thing. For the progressives who warned about this, we weren't looking forward to it. We were trying to prevent it. For both, because we don't want buildings burned, we want to make sure that we have a just system and that people believe in that system. And that when there is an uprising, that they don't go to CNN in anger, that they go to CNN to say, okay, we're here, let's go do this together. Make sure you're covering it, etc. Do you get any sense of that now? Of course not. And the other reason we warned about this is because we don't want African Americans dying for no reason, because we didn't train the cops right, because no one cared, because no politician dared to challenge the police, and no media dared to challenge the government and the politicians and the police. Do you really see the media at large, but also CNN in particular, talking about, before George Floyd, talking about the deep cultural problems in policing, that it's not a few bad apples, that the system is corrupt, that the system is wrong, and the system on purpose does this. It targets African Americans, poor, middle class. It's based on race. It's based on class. Do you see them talking about how people should be furious about that? Never. They talk about civility. Don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. Well, when you never offer change and you're not on the side of the people pushing for change and reform, and you tell people not to rock the boat and they keep getting killed, at some point they go, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to rock the boat, including your boat. So that's what's happening today. Right or wrong, that is the actual reality on the ground, and we're living it. So I hope everyone is okay and safe. And if you're part of the protest, please, not just you be safe and make sure you don't do anything physical or violent, but try to influence everyone around you. These protests are so important and vital. It is past time that we got up, stood up, and shook the rafters and shake people out of their complacency. But it must not cross over to violence. Because if it does, they will just use that against you. They will further delegitimize you, further oppress you. And in a situation where you have violence, the left wing, the people in favor of reform, the people in favor of nonviolence are not the ones that win. The people that are right wing and revel in violence are much more likely to win in that situation and further crush and oppress us. Remember Martin Luther King, and boy, Atlanta is the perfect place for that lesson. Massive nonviolent protests and civil disobedience as far as the eye can see, because the heart of the protest is saying, we can't take this anymore. In a sense, they are saying to this oppressive establishment and power structure, we can't breathe.